also a podcaster himself. He's up late with me on the Final Five, and you went tieless. You asked me before, do I do tie or no tie? I dig the look. Let's talk about this. So you would fancy yourself a millennial, correct?
I sure am.
Okay. Why is podcasting, why has that become so important these days?
Well, it's intimate, it's connected, it's long form. I think that people are really hungry for a new format of news and of audio and of storytelling. And podcasting has long been on this trend, up to where it is now, where it's looking, like you said, like a $220 million advertising industry, and it's doubling year over year. People are looking for long-form storytelling, and I think they're finding that in podcasting.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the main draw for podcasting these days, and a lot of it is politics. We know that talk radio for years and years has been this huge revenue driver. Rush Limbaugh was a pioneer, and we know that he was a guy who made so much money off talk radio, and we've moved into the podcasting realm where you see, for example, I'm thinking of the Pod Save America guys, 3 guys who worked in the Obama administration, who have built a big following up with liberal listeners, and they've been quite successful in terms of that. But doesn't this draw some comparisons to segmentation of the audience, where you have, if you're liberal, you're going to listen to a Pod Save America. If you're conservative, you're going to listen to the Ben Shapiro's or the Rush Limbaughs of the world?
Sure. I think there's always that potential for everybody falling into camps in which they are comfortable. I think that is human nature. But what podcasting does is it does open up a longer form conversation to be had between people who are on shows. You do a lot of mixing of guests across from podcasts. There's not as much reluctance to tangle people up like you have with networks. And you sort of get a broader view of these issues. You don't have 5 minutes to talk about an issue. You have 45 minutes to an hour to talk about something and really dig into it in a way that allows for nuance. And I think that that is something that is relatively new, and people are looking for that. Now, with Pod Save America, I think that's a great example of a new frontier for left-wing commentary. And people are going to really enjoy that, but they are going to diversify with other sorts of podcasts that fill the other areas that are not getting from that one show.
Because this was certainly a realm that did not work for liberals in the past. The Air America Network, I know that one guy, Sam Cedar, still does a podcast. He's still out there, but by and large, this has been a realm for really, it seems like, as you mentioned, if you lean one way, you listen to talk radio through the years.
Yeah.
As we move forward, though, I mean, where do you think this is headed? Because look, I was never a podcast guy. I got an Amazon Echo speaker. Now I just yell out, Alexa, listen to the Daily, because I do listen to the New York Times Daily podcast.
You're a believer now.
I am. I love it. I love it. But yeah, give me a sense. Where do you think this is headed?
Well, this is going to be in everybody's cars in no time, right? Like the Rush Limbaugh radio show. It is available to you when it's running from 12 to 3. And that is much for an older demographic, and that's not really working. Now, that's why you have some people in media like Glenn Beck who will take like their radio show from the morning and they'll run the podcast version later.
And let's be honest, when you mention Glenn Beck, that's fascinating, because here's a guy who was on top of the world for a long while, very successful, but had some advertiser backlash, then decided, I'm going to do this whole enterprise on myself. So that lends it well to the fact that suddenly you're not guided by the whims of your advertisers.
Yeah, I mean, this is a new frontier, and the advertisers here are different. One thing that we've discovered now with this boom in podcasting is that advertisers are actually feeling they get the bang for their buck. So with radio, one of the problems that you have is you pay to be an advertiser on the Sean Hannity show, but the person who's listening in the car, they got to Starbucks and they got out of the car. They're only driving for 5 or 10 minutes, right? You just kind of are a commuter listener. There are very few people listening to the entire program on their computers or elsewhere. So with podcasting, you are committed to listening to that entire program. And what we found out through Apple's analytics that they just rolled out last month is that folks are not skipping the ads. They're listening through all 45 minutes to 60 minutes of these programs, and they're not hitting the skip button. Now, I'm guilty. I do actually skip the ads. But that's not the case by and large. So advertisers are happy with what they're getting, and they're going to keep coming back.
You want to make advertisers happy. Hey, we're almost out of time. I did say you were a podcaster. I'll let you go ahead and plug your podcast. Tell people what they should listen to, what they should look for in the app stores.
Yeah, so you can catch me on the Young Voices Advocates podcast, and also my show, the Beltway Banthas podcast, where we merge Star Wars and politics. So we talk about everything that's going on in the Star Wars movies and break down what you see in those movies in terms of the politics. And that really is the key to podcasting. If you are looking to become a podcaster yourself, find an intersection that interests people and that no one else is doing, and you'll have an audience.
Lessons from Stephen Kent. Good to see you. see you, Stephen. By the way, you should check out the Fox 5 podcast as well. I still have a key card. And what's the Mansion Murders? Check them out. We're back after no tie for Stephen Kent. Back after the break.
Maybe